Welcome everyone, my name is Zach, and in this video I'm going to explain 4 reasons that cheap people buy Teslas. I consider myself to be pretty cheap, yet last year I bought a $50,000 Tesla Model 3. So this video is largely based on my own experiences, but I think there are a lot of people in a similar situation. So reason number 1, cars are fun. So I genuinely enjoy driving, and I like having a car that's fun to drive and puts a smile on my face just by looking at it. And in general, I think it's healthy to spend money on things that make you happy and you're passionate about. But with that said, you have to seriously ask yourself what makes you happy before you go out and spend this much money on something. So think about what you're truly passionate about and what makes you happy, and try not to be so cheap when you're spending money on items in those categories. Just make sure to steer clear of spending money just for the sake of impressing others. Okay, on to reason number 2. So a big factor to consider with electric vehicles is that the sticker price doesn't tell the full story. There are a few costs associated with combustion engine vehicles, such as maintenance and gas and insurance, that don't necessarily translate one-to-one to electric vehicles. So before my Tesla Model 3, I had a used Audi A4, and the maintenance on that vehicle was much more demanding. I had oil changes every 5,000 miles for $80, plus the recommended Audi maintenance schedule, which could be anywhere from $200 to $500 a year. Now, obviously you could find a cheaper and more reliable combustion engine vehicle that would lower this cost, but that's not going to be in the same category of performance as the Tesla Model 3. For comparison, the Model 3 requires no oil changes or annual maintenance. And if you're using one-pedal driving, you'll likely never have to replace your brakes. The one unique thing for Teslas are battery coolant flushes, which Tesla previously recommended doing every 4 years or 50,000 miles. But they now say that under normal circumstances, you won't have to do this for the life of the vehicle. Now, obviously some costs are going to be equivalent between combustion engine vehicles and electric vehicles, such as anything related to tires and brake fluid and things like that. Additionally, driving on electricity is much cheaper than gas. Now, on average, I was spending about $110 a month with my previous car that got about 25 miles per gallon combined. For electricity, I spend about $20 a month to drive the same distance. Now, most of my charging is done at home, which is generally the cheapest rate that you're going to get for electricity. But if you have free supercharging or free level 2 charging nearby, this could be even cheaper. It's important to note that supercharging or level 2 charging networks are almost always going to be cheaper than gas, but they can be a bit more expensive than charging at home. Also keep an eye out for level 2 charging at parks and city buildings, as these are often free for a couple hours. Now, believe it or not, the insurance is actually cheaper on my Tesla than it was on my previous car as well. I pay $20 a month less, even though it's a more expensive car. I'm guessing this is mostly due to the safety features of the Model 3. So all in all, my Tesla costs about $150 less per month to operate compared to my previous vehicle. Okay, on to reason number 3 for why cheap people buy Teslas. So the sticker price on my Tesla Model 3 long-range dual motor was just shy of $49,000, but was closer to $52,000 after taxes and fees. However, one of the great things about purchasing an EV is that there are often some form of tax incentives to take advantage of. In my case, I was able to claim both a $1,875 federal tax credit, as well as a $5,000 state tax credit. So after factoring in these credits, the cost of the car was right around $45,000. So this brings me to car price to income ratio. If you're interested in personal finance, you've heard of Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey has a rule that you should never spend more than half of your annual household income on vehicles or anything with a motor in it. So as an example, if you're single and have an annual income of $60,000, that would mean that you should spend a max of $30,000 on a vehicle. So I think this is a great guideline to keep in mind when you're purchasing a vehicle, because it gives you a rough idea of whether or not something's too expensive for you. Now, I have to note that Dave Ramsey also says that you should only pay cash for a vehicle, but let's agree to disagree on that one. If you have no high interest debt or student loans, then I personally think a reasonable car loan is totally fine as long as you're following the ratio we just talked about. So speaking of car debt, another note that I want to make is that I 100% believe that in a lot of cases, cars keep people poor. They are depreciating assets, and there's just no way to get around that. But unfortunately here in America, they are a necessary evil for most people. The 50% of your income rule is just a guideline that helps keep this in check, and I think it makes sense. But let's keep in mind that Kelley Blue Book reported that in 2019, the average price paid for a new vehicle was almost $38,000. While the US Census Bureau reported that in 2018, the median household income was just over $63,000. And if we assume that most households have 2 cars, that's over $75,000 spent on cars, which is way over 50% of the median household income and a huge problem. Now for the fourth and final reason on this list, and the one you're probably shocked I haven't mentioned yet. So without going too far down a rabbit hole on the environmental benefits of owning an electric vehicle, I do think electric vehicles are the future of transportation. Now they're not perfect, but they're a vast improvement over combustion vehicles. But like with any new technology, it starts out expensive. Look at the Tesla Model S and X, for example. They're very expensive and largely out of reach for most people. But a number of wealthy people embraced this new technology. This lowered the cost of battery production and is ultimately what allowed the cheaper Model 3 and Model Y to happen. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this video, it's that when you spend money, you are voting. If you believe a product is the future, or at least a step in the right direction, and is generally an improvement for society or the planet, then buy the product, as long as you can afford it. This is the best method for an individual to cast their vote and influence the market. And so many companies fall into this rhythm with little to no desire to innovate, based solely on perceived risk and uncertainty, often at the detriment of the consumer, society, and in this case, the planet. And I think a lot of frugal people don't like to spend money because they are always looking into the future. And products like Tesla's are really a taste of the future. So it makes sense that people are naturally drawn to them and want to see them succeed. So those are the four main reasons from my experience that cheap people like myself buy things like Teslas. But I do want to quickly touch upon a couple other things that you might be thinking about. Now I know some of you might be thinking, gee Zach, there are other options besides Tesla that check most of these boxes too. To this I say, yeah, you're right, there are. But I couldn't find a more compelling product for me personally at the time that I made the purchase. None of the other options at or below this price point had the level of technology, performance, style, or charging network, and I would rather support a company providing the best product in a new market segment. That said, if you're in a similar situation than I was, evaluate all your options. There are plenty of new electric vehicles entering the market, and there might be a better option for you, depending on what you care about most. The other thing I want to cover quickly is that I do not view this car as an investment whatsoever. Some people like to think that Teslas will increase in value with full self-driving and over-the-air updates, and your car will make you hundreds of thousands of dollars driving people around while you sit at home or at work. Would that be great? Sure, sign me up. But frankly, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I think it's very dangerous to be counting on that when making a purchase as large as this. In the long run, it's a car. It's a car in a rapidly developing market segment, and I fully expect it to depreciate just as much as any other car. But that's all for today. Leave a comment down below if you agree with my thinking, or even if you think it's stupid to buy a Tesla. Regardless, thanks for watching, and please consider hitting the like button or subscribing if you want to learn more about personal finance and living with an electric vehicle.